and a very warm welcome to what we hope is a very special edition of The Good, the Bad and the Rugby. This episode forms part of the Vodafone Breaking Through series that we are running at the moment, which dives deep into the journeys, the challenges and the experiences that our guests have been through. We are pulling this together and we are envisaging a message to our audience that tackles the question, how can we all be a little bit better in 2021? And we hope to be able to shed light on a world of rugby that is totally inclusive and accepting as it goes, and always looking to improve as well. Our next guest has had quite the journey. From X Factor to a record deal, Vogue interviews to touching down in the corner. It's the one and the only Levi Davis. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
I'm very well, Alex. How are you?
We are very well. We're on a journey with this, actually. I will be honest with you. And we spoke to Craig Maxwell Keys. Do you know, there's something very enlightening about trying to be better. And I think we said to Craig the other day that there's a lot of transmit in the world at the moment, and there's not a lot of listening. And actually, it's very good occasionally just to pause and listen and try and be a little bit better off the back of it. So that's what we're trying to do with this.
Yeah.
We are really pleased to have you on. I'm very grateful that you've accepted. And I'm curious to start by saying why. Why do you want to come on?
I just thought it was, again, it's a great opportunity to speak about my story, but two, again, help other people that potentially may be in my shoes or are thinking about it, not sure what to do about it, or are close to doing it and don't know the best way to go about it, and maybe even learn from some of the things, my mistakes, and don't drop it on a text, even though it was brilliant how it went. But there might be a better way to go about it. So that's it really.
I love it. So 2021, just sort of chaos and crashes everywhere. Where I want to start actually is with you in the here and now. We'll go back to the journey and everything you've been doing, but where are you right now? Are you a musician who plays a bit of rugby? Are you a rugby player who dabbles in a bit of music?
I thought you were like, where am I right now?
Well, hey, where are you physically right now?
Yeah, well, let's just I'd say, it's an ever evolving answer to that question. I'd still say, I love sport. I do love sport. I played a bit of sevens the other day and absolutely loved it. But my heart is in the music. Like, I absolutely love it, and that's where the way I see myself moving forward and continuing to move forward is with music. So I'd say I'm a musician. I'm an artist that still plays a bit, and there's a few other things that I'm looking into doing as well, just to give myself some structure to keep moving forward, and because I don't know about you, James, but when you leave rugby, that structure that you've had, it's very hard to try and replicate that elsewhere. It's almost impossible. And then you're almost adulting again. You're learning, you're growing, you have to set your own structure. You're not got Sophie Bennett on the phone from Bath going, now where are you, mate? It's your team manager, just like so it's a bit different, but I'm enjoying the challenge.
No one tells you where to be and what to wear and which way to face and what to eat and how. Yeah, you've got to basically begin again, right? Does that ring true for you? We've spoken about this many times, but it's a hell of a journey, that.
Of course, I think adulting. I've not heard that word before, but
it's a great word.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, my wife would argue that I am still not in any way, shape, or form an adult. It's very hard because we have been kind of indoctrinated. And actually, I think that's why it's so interesting with your kind of story, is because you've done the rugby, you're going into musician, you've obviously had the stuff about your kind of sexuality. There's so much different avenues pulling you in different ways to go, with different things to address. And for me, that transition was very hard outside of rugby, because I missed the routine, I missed a sole purpose. I missed the fact that I'd given up a large portion of my life to do something. And at 36, I had achieved all that was possible to achieve with the limitations of my body and my skill set and time and luck and everything else. And now I have to start again. And hopefully you're going to have more life to live doing something else than you have doing what you've done. And that can be quite daunting. And actually, the one piece of advice I would give to you anyway, but I think you've cottoned onto it, is routine is essential. And obviously going into the middle of a pandemic and retiring just after that, you need a reason to wake up in the morning. You need a reason to keep training. You need a reason to stay healthy. You need all these kind of touchstones throughout your day. And it's important to surround yourself with good people. It's important to get a good routine. It's important to have a purpose. And if music is your life, it's how does that fit around your day? How do you make that happen? Because so many people say, I want to do this, but then the minutiae of life gets in the way. And it's actually how to really make the most of it, you know?
Well, I know routine is important, but I'm still trying to find one. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, exactly that. And that's it. And the circle bit as well. Like you're in a team full of like-minded individuals. You step out of that and, they're still my friends. Like I could still contact them and speak to them, but I'm not seeing them every day. And then, out of sight, not out of mind, but, I'm not speaking to them all the time. And then that's another adjustment where who in that team are your mates that you can carry forward as well. So it's tough, isn't it?
I think as well, what you'll find is that sports people are inherently selfish, and it suits us in one way, but with that tunnel vision and focus, it means that yes, you have great bonds with your teammates and friends, and we want to hear about kind of the acceptance that your teammates had for you, and rightly so. But if you're not in a sportsman, especially rugby player sphere of influence on a day-to-day basis, you're forgotten because you're on to the next thing. And it's only when you retire do you then have to actively go, right, I need to check in with them, I need to check in with them. Whereas before, we always operated the policy that if we're mates, we're always mates. Like, I don't need to speak to you for 6 weeks, but I know when you pick up the phone. But unfortunately, when you're friends with sports people, I mean, I hardly see people from Saints or from Wasps. And I know if I speak to them, I see them, it'll be great. But I don't speak to them and meet up with them as much as I should do, because we're all on this this sort of treadmill.
Yeah, agreed for sure. That's it. I've definitely found that as well. I went back to Bath once, I think, since I left. I was like, I'll message my friends. I met up with a couple of the boys, but everyone's like, you forget that everyone's dotted around everywhere. Everyone's doing different things. And I was like, oh, brilliant. I'm going to go see this person, organize it. And then I forget that no one actually sticks to their schedule. They're not in Bath. If they're not in Bath, they're spontaneous, aren't they? So, yeah, no, but there's something brilliant about that as well. But yeah.
I think someone wise once said, I think it was actually Ferris Bueller, that life moves pretty fast and every so often you've got to stop and look around. But I mean, it's interesting listening to the two of you chat. I mean, Hask, you are multi-layered, but on the surface, you are a big rugby player, successful, noisy, Route 1. That is how people would perceive you. And actually, one of the fun things about our podcast over the years is that we've broken that down and gone to some slightly more, interesting places with you. Levi, when you look at your story, I mean, I can't think of anyone we've interviewed who's got as many chapters in as few a number of years as you do. And that is, we'll come on to some of those. But do you recognise that? Is that something that you're like, holy Moses, there is a lot coming and going in my life right now? Or are you just living your life and cracking into it?
It's a good song, that, Holy Moses. I when people remind me of it, I do look back and go, that you could have told me this when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, I'd have told you no, like no way. But
where were you at 7, 8, 9 years old? I mean, in terms of not physically, but who were you at that point?
Who was I? I was at home at 7, and then 8, 9. I was moved away from home due to various reasons. Who was I? Confused. I was confused, very confused kid. And missed my family. That's who I was. I was looking for things and ways to channel that in the right way, and rugby became very quickly one of those. But who was I? I don't know. I just used to run away a lot. That's all I used to do. So I guess rugby for a career was perfect for me, wasn't it? Just running away from people like Hask. So there you go. But no, it was that's who I was at that point.
Interesting. Do you mind me saying, we can absolutely take it up, but do you mind me saying that sort of part of your youth there was a bit of foster care, and there was a journey of self-discovery for you on that course. And one of the things that we're talking about over the course of these shows is sort of how rugby has welcomed you, has accepted you, etc., but also how much more it could do. And I just wonder, almost as a kid, you mentioned that rugby was a really good outlet for you. I mean, is that very much the case? Was it a very good support structure at a young age to let you channel some of the things that you were trying to channel?
Exactly that. I mean, you know, I was very fortunate in terms of the fact that I was in very good families. I had a loving family as well, and still do. And it's not always going to go right. Life's not always going to go right. I mean, there are people that haven't been in foster care that have a really good life. It's not about that. But what rugby did allow me to do is channel my feelings, my emotions. It gave me an extra few families, because everybody looks after everyone. You know what? I couldn't even without some of the people I've met, I wouldn't have even been able to get to training. It's that bad. Like, I just wouldn't have. And these people that at the time I barely even knew would drive me frequently, drop me back at home, and all of that stuff. And when I think about it, it gets me quite emotional, because it's like who was I to those people at that point? No, I wasn't anyone, and I was just this kid. It's yeah. It's actually it's the first time I've thought about it in this depth, about how lucky. I mean, I always knew I was lucky, but I mean, to think about how many things clicked on the way is actually a bit ridiculous. I'm just thankful to those people, and I don't really know what to say. It is a bit mad.
I love your honesty, and I love your emotion with it as well. And what I definitely don't want to do is sort of make this something that you don't want it to. But I think, funnily enough, by doing this and by speaking the way that you're speaking, you will be repaying the people who have helped you get to where you get to more than you could possibly imagine. I think there is satisfaction and fulfillment for those people in knowing how they've helped you to get to where you get to, which right now is as a proper champion of some quite extraordinary storylines. I mean, there are things that you have overcome on your journey. You've lived a life, and you may not yet realise it, but there'll be a lot of people who tap into that as you go. Tell me a little bit. I mean, obviously, you've mentioned about how rugby was there for you, etc. But you've put a lot into the game as well, and you've got a huge amount of talent. When did you realise that you actually had quite a lot to offer in the game?
For me, I was always a year behind. Like, there was county, didn't quite get into county that year. Then I got in county next year, but then there was another rung to that year. So every year there was another thing that they added on. So there was county first year, didn't get in, because I started at 12 years old. So that was the first year of county, and it was like, I really want it, but I can't get there. Then there was EPDG, and then I didn't get into that the first year, then got in the second year. And then, I was always chasing it. And I think that's what kept me hungry, is I was always chasing that next thing. And I guess when I realised I was okay at rugby, there was a year I scored like 43 tries in my club rugby. Then I didn't even get in then, to the top level of that year. And it was bubbling inside me. I was just like, I have to like make it here, because I wanted to be a footballer when I was younger. Didn't everybody? But then I just realised that there was something in me that I needed to channel, and football wasn't doing it and didn't allow me to do it. That rugby did, and I guess that was the year really when I was like, I'm going to go for this. When I scored 43 tries, Tom Croft was a good family friend of my family, of my friends who were bringing me to rugby then, the Beardsmores. They're, yeah, no, they've been massive. The Tweddles, you know, they've been massive. The Rolands, all these people, all these families. I could go on, but I guess they all allowed me to realise that I could do it. They all allowed me to realise I could do it, and I guess I realised around 14, and I was like, I'm going for this. And then, then at school, you know, Denston helped me loads. We'd be driving up and down to Tigers, going to training, and you know, a lot of the boys got contracted at 16, but we, a couple of lads at school weren't contracted, and so we were driving up and down from sixth form, just to train. You know, we weren't in favour, but then I got into England, and that was something that year I said at the start of the year we had some South African gappies, absolute great blokes, but one of them played for Bishops, and he was like, "Bro, yeah, bro." I still remember him. "Oh yeah, bro. You're gonna play for England this year, eh, bro?" Yeah, I was like, "Bro, it's happening." Every day we did something towards getting to the England under-18s. You know, it was huge. And I sang that national anthem like I'd never sang it before, and it's brilliant because I used to watch you, Hask. I used to watch you. Sat on the floor at the Beardsmore's house, and this full circle. It's just weird. It's just weird.
I think that's...
And the more I think about it, yeah, you go, sorry.
No, I was going to say, but I think this is the beauty of what we're trying to do here. And there's obviously some larger topics we want to talk about, but I think it's really nice because there will be, as Alex said, there's people in your position, but in also different ones, but still that striving to keep making it. Because for some people, it feels like the roadmap's laid out and it's one thing after another and they just chip stuff away. For other people, it's disappointment after kind of fear, after everything else. And then they're ultimately able to make it. And I think that what ultimately everybody always says in life, it's the journey, not the result. But every now and then it's nice to get a milestone in the sand, like England under 18s for you. Like it was the same for me. Like I obviously we have very different pass, but the same thing. I'd never quite made it. Yeah. And for me, playing for England under 18s was a huge moment, and not to make it into England under 16s was for a white middle class privileged person. That was my first real taste of disappointment, and that for some people, honestly, it was my fruit. It was kind of. When you're young and you don't really aware of a lot. For some people have different obstacles. We've talked to people on here who've had, you've got obstacles around your sexuality that you've known for a long time, and that's a real struggle. For me, it was my first kind of moment where I didn't get into something, and I took it really badly. And then you go for that milestone, and it's interesting to hear you say the same thing. You sing that anthem, and that's all you need. It's just one win, and then it kicks on, and then it shows you that, you know what, if you stick with it, if you work hard, if you're a good person, I promise you, all the people you've talked about, all the families, that they'll know how grateful you are because you're that kind of guy, but also B, the fact that they've seen you do what you're going to do, that's thanks enough for some people,
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And it's thinking about it and talking about this, I'm itching to play again. I'm just like, oh, brilliant, what have you done? But no, I mean, we'll still be playing over the summer for the Sevens, so it's not gone away. We played at the Roslyn Park London Floodlit the other day, which was awesome, and that was good fun. So the fire's still burning,
which is brilliant to hear. And maybe we're giving you a little something back as well as what you're giving to us. We're restoking those fires, as you say. Just on your journey, though, in terms of obviously real potential with the rugby, and you made it to age group, and there's a lot more that's come. When did the music sort of blend into that? Was that always running alongside? Was it something you tried and wanted? Where did that fit in?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been in like choirs and stuff since I was young. My grandma was a big influence. Mavis Davis. She's again. I always say it. She's the real rock star of the family. But she was a big influence. So I was in choirs, coming up, and then I went to. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to a very good school, Dunstan, and they had, we had choir there. We were performing arts. Music's always been there. But at 18, I decided I really wanted to do it. So I bought a load of stuff at uni, started doing it in my room. But then at 21, I was 21. I was like, look, I'm going to do this properly. And went to music school, British and Irish Institute of Music in Bristol. That's when I decided, no, I really want to do this professionally. And my original decision was to do it alongside my rugby career, but there are reasons. There's a few things that happened that unfortunately didn't allow that to happen.
Can you go into those? In what way? Is that music agents saying I can't have you on top of the pops with your head smashed in, or?
No, it's not that. It wasn't that. I can go into them. I mean, it was more the fact that the X Factor came at a really bad time. Like the boys were away. The boys were away at England. I'd been up until this point 3 years. I've been training with Anthony Watson, with Rocco, with Matt Banahan, with these massively influential wingers, which is why I was able to play. But even if for the smallest amount of time at the level, I was able to play because I learned so much off those guys. Things came through. Rocco was resting for a week, and I broke into the first team, and I was playing some good rugby by my standards anyway. It was I was playing some good rugby, and everyone was happy. But then we'd already pre-agreed ages ago that I was okay to, when I was a ringer and nowhere near the first team, that it was okay to go on the X Factor. And I was like, oh well, it's not gonna, it's gonna be 2 months. What am I gonna miss? I'm not gonna be playing anyway. That was my mindset. I was like, I can't miss out on this. This is huge. I'm not gonna play. I'll come back and then I'll train hard then. Things happened, and then I broke in, started playing really well, broke into the first team, and made my Premiership debut. And then the week after, I'm on live television. It's a bit surreal. It's a bit mad, and sometimes I think about it, and I'm like, what happens if it didn't go on the show? I'd still be playing. Would I still be playing at Bath? But I never dwell on things like that, because I think everything happens for a reason. And I know that music's something I love and something I want, but I also realized that I had a dream one day to play for England like Ask, and I've not realized that, and I get emotionally attached to my dreams. So it's not like I just go, fine, I'll just go with this one. But then also I think about one day, it's so out there. I'm going to say it though, it's so out there. I'll think about one day, selling out Glastonbury, and imagine that at a sunset. They're both ridiculous things that could happen. But I've got to decide, because that's the one thing you got to work on it.
I mean, this is almost, it's quite hard to keep up with your story, Levi. It's like I don't know whether I'm going left, right, forwards, backwards. There's a lot happening in a very short space of time, which is amazing. I want to come back to the music in a moment or two, but tell me a little bit. I mean, and I don't mean this in a flippant way at all, but given where you've come from, given where you're going, given the options you've got in front of you, it almost feels like the decision to sort of come out, as it were, or declare your bisexuality is sort of almost incidental. It's just part of the roller coaster that you're on. But that probably is doing it down in a great disservice. That's what it would look like from the outside.
Yeah.
In is that very different to the reality? Was that quite a burden to carry, or was it, this is who I am? My life goes at 100 miles an hour, and I'm going to throw this out there.
Yeah, for me, we were in lockdown. I'd been, doing, known kind of since I was 18. and learning more since I was 18. And then when I was, when it happened, I was just like, you know what? I don't have to sneak around anymore. I know the boys, this is the best time because I'm not going to go in next day and be paranoid about what people are saying on my back. Like, we're not in. So I'm just going to message it and see their response. And then the way things go, you have a few drinks on the weekend, you met at like a muppet in front of the lads, you're the topic of news on Monday, and then on Tuesday, no one cares. That's the way it goes. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm just going to message it. And then something else will come in by the time I get back in. Actually, we never got back in because of Corona. But yeah, that was my idea. And then I messaged on the group with the lads, and they were like, oh, obviously they were amazing. They were, congratulations, well done for doing this. And then, but the best thing was that they were still giving me crack about that, giving me a bit of banter, and that was the best thing they could have ever done. Because if they'd have been treading on eggshells around me, I'd have felt so bad. But the fact that, they just went straight in and ripped into me was awesome. It was awesome. And it wasn't anything negative. They were, well done, we're here for you. But yeah, it was like, what do you want? A medal? And it was brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So, it's that's exactly the response. I couldn't have asked for anything better, really.
And was that, you said since you're 18? I mean, was there a large amount of turmoil in terms of coming out and realizing it, and were you really struggling with it, or was it the fact that as you were learning more, it became a bit more of an issue that you felt like you needed to talk about? Because for some people, we talk about it was an all-consuming thing, and they were living two separate lives. For you, it seems a little. Well, I'm not putting words in your mouth. What was it easy, or was it particularly difficult?
No, I tell you what. I tell you what it was. I was still learning, as you said. Like, I was still learning as I was going along. And still am. I'm still learning, but it's what it was I was again driving, often trying to sneaking about and not wanting anyone to know. And that was the part that I felt like, why should I feel like I'm doing something wrong here? That was the biggest part, is that I didn't want to have to try and hide anything, in terms of like, I just wanted it to be out there. I didn't want to have to hide. That's it. Yeah.
Did that feel like a weight lifted, or did it just? I mean, it's no surprise that a rugby club and a rugby environment moves pretty quickly. But did it feel like a weight off your shoulders having done it, or was it just great?
It did. At first, I was like, because it was like 30 seconds before there was a response. I was like, waiting for my phone. It's like, whoa. But as soon as the responses started rolling in, because again, once one person messages, it's like, everyone's like, okay, that's the framework. Let me just make a variant of it. No. It was brilliant. I did feel like a weight was lifted. I did. And I felt like I could continue to move on my journey. And the boys not care, but they also supported me as me. They don't care about what you are or what sexuality you are. They're going to support you as a rugby player.
I want to come on to postcards, which we're asking all our guests to ask a few questions, which we're going to put into sort of digital notes, which we'll leave on our website for people who perhaps are looking for a bit of inspiration or some help or some guidance, etc. But just, I suppose, to sort of sum up where we were, the decision obviously to make and to drop that note into the WhatsApp group was fantastically received, and rightly so. But is that your overall experience of rugby? And if you were passing on your experience to those coming behind, would you give it what mark would you give rugby out of 10 for the way that it's embraced you for who you are and where you're going?
Yeah. It's hard to quantify it, I think, because all I've ever felt is support from the lads and from the club and from the RPA and from the people that are in place to support us did exactly that. And whatever it be, they will support you. But I genuinely would. I'd say 9, because nothing's ever perfect, is it? But I had everything that I could have ever needed. But they also didn't throw it down my throat, if you get what I mean. Like, they didn't go, oh, you can have this, do this, do this, do this. Like, it was, this is here if you need it. This is an option that you can take, and you can go ahead and take it. It's there. But if you don't have to use it as well, in terms of just services, people to speak to, advice, anything. It was there, but if I didn't need it or want it, didn't have to use it, which was awesome.
And I suppose the question that would follow on from that is, how would you compare rugby to music?
Tell you what, they're both performance sports, aren't they?
Yeah.
I genuinely think they're pretty similar in terms of, again, in my, my limited experience is rugby is about what you do on the pitch. You're performing. You need to be performing, and on the stage is the same thing. People come to hear you be at your best and perform. So it's the same. I'd say that's the similarity. It's just, they're both. You're an entertainer in both.
But what about the way that you have been received in both? I mean, would you put?
Oh. Yeah.
Because sort of the arts has probably got a much more
diverse,
diverse populace, as it were, and it's been far more celebrated. The topics and the journeys that we're discussing on this series in arts long before sort of sport, I think, has had the bravery to break the boundary. And I just wondered whether you compare the two in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, because rugby, where rugby's come from, traditionally, it has been moving towards this for a while, I think. But I think obviously the arts has always been everybody's, hasn't it? And I don't mean that in any disrespect to rugby. It's just not been. It's just where it's come from. But it at the minute is doing everything it can to for inclusivity, for equality, and for the sport to have everybody in it. And it still has a way to go. And this isn't just in sexuality; it's in a lot of things.
Do you really feel that, Levi? Do you really feel that? Because I know sometimes when we talk about things, people feel just because we're talking about it, we're making a positive step. Do you actually believe that? And because obviously you cross quite a few demographics in terms of what's being talked about. You kind of encompass quite a lot, and I wondered, whether you do think it's making as much progress as it should do, and if there's anything outstanding that you think needs improving.
So, from what I could see when I was obviously in the game, that's what I can talk about, is I think that steps are being taken. Whether it's surface level, I don't know. I think, as I said, like, I wouldn't have been able to get to where I was going if I didn't have the family and support around me. But that rings true with a lot of people. It's not whether I'm, black, white, straight, upside down. It doesn't matter. It's that's a lot of people. So it's hard to talk about when I don't have the facts, and I don't know what they are doing. I know they talk about it, as you say, whether it's rhetoric or surface level, I don't know. But I think you can always improve in anything. And, again, I think in comparison to music, rugby's going to be blown out of the water in all of those kind of categories, because they haven't been doing it for as long. But it doesn't mean that they're not trying, and it doesn't mean that they're not pushing it forward. But, I find it difficult to talk about these things because I still don't know where I stand. And without all the information, I wouldn't be able to. But I think it can definitely improve.
By that? You don't know where you stand on what?
I don't know where I stand on how much it's doing in terms of overall for these things like equality and allowing people to be in the game. But I know that I see things you know, I see like Ugo's running a really cool thing with that, and he's been put at the head of the board for that, isn't he? I can't remember what that was called.
He's joined the RFU, absolutely. I think for diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, exactly that, which is absolutely awesome. And like steps like that, I'm like, you know, they give you, you know, they're awesome. They're really, really important. How much power, influence, control he has on being able to make a difference, and how much he's going to be listened to, I don't know. Is it a just something for them to say, oh look, this is what we've done, but he doesn't actually have any power or influence? They're just going to listen to him and then just not doing anything. I don't know, but you know, Ugo's awesome. He's a really clever man, and I'm sure, and there are loads of clever people in rugby, so I'm sure that it'll move in the right direction, and I'm sure that rugby will continue to do that. So yeah, but when I say I don't know what I mean, when I say I need all the information because I don't know, I mean in terms of like I've not, you know, over the last 6 months I've not been massively tuned into what's been happening. Obviously I've seen the BLM stuff, I've seen the equality and pride stuff, but I don't know what's going on behind the scenes is what I'm saying.
It's very interesting. We mentioned earlier on, and I'm conscious of your time, that we would love, if you're happy to, for you to leave 3 digital postcards for people who might come to the website and want to know more about you, or might want to know more about your journey, and might just want a bit of help as they make their own decisions and their own path. So the 3 questions that you've chosen, we'll go one by one, and if you're happy to answer them, the first one we'd love you to answer is, my greatest supporter was... ...
My greatest supporter, I guess it was myself. I always knew that I wanted to work hard for where I wanted to go to be. But also my greatest supporter was that pyramid and that triangle that was behind me that I've discussed before. You have to be your first and best supporter, but also realize that the circle you have behind you is equivalent to that. And so my greatest supporter was myself, but my families and my friends that I had at that time also.
That is a very good answer. That is a very good answer. Hask, you got the next one? I learned most from...
What, me? You want me to answer that, or you want me to answer that?
I think you should throw it to Levi. The next one is, I learned most from...
I learned most from Levi.
I learned most from... I learned most from realizing that you're not going to please everybody. No matter how hard you try, you're never going to please everyone. And so I guess the best thing you can do is be the best version of yourself in every situation, and understand that it's okay to learn and it's okay to improve. And it's okay to get things wrong. That's it.
That's a great answer. Should we do the last one, Alex?
Yeah.
The one thing I'd love to see is...
One thing I'd love to see. I'd love to see a world and where coming out, or you know, BLM or pride or all of that isn't necessary. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
Do you think that is realistic in your lifetime? Do you think that's achievable? Do you think... Personally, I
don't. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of issues, because it's not just those issues. You know, there are a lot of issues out there, excluding what we've already spoken about. I think all we can do in our lifetime is chip away at it. And there's a really well-known term in academia, standing on the shoulders of giants. And that's exactly what we're doing, whether it be music, whether it be rugby, You know, the first person to pass a ball definitely didn't pass it like, you know, you see Marcus Smith or those boys pass it. You know, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. We're improving. We're not reforming our foundations. We're always pushing. We're always being innovative. And I think that we take that example and we bring it into relations with other things. And I think if we accept that this is how much we can do, but we can do this to the best of our ability, then our kids will be better. They're being taught so much. I talk to my little brothers and sisters, you know, and I hear some of the things that they say, and you know, it's encouraging. It's encouraging because no one's taught hatred. No one's taught anything like that. Sorry, no one's born with hatred. No one's born with that. They're taught it, and education's the key.
I don't know if it's appropriate to tell this story, but I'm going to anyway because you're talking about I think particularly with the matters you're talking about here, children are almost educating us. And I said I've got an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, and my kids they don't even bat an eyelid. It's like it's just not a thing. And I say that because the first I ever learned about homosexuality was through friends of, I think a friend or contact of my parents when I was 8 and he must have been 70. And I remember my parents telling me that he'd been to jail because he was homosexual. And for me as an 8-year-old kid, that was frightening. And it was, you know, I was very, I was confused by it. That sort of painted it into something that was, you know, that nowadays you just are like, I can't quite believe that was the way these things were kind of perceived. You know, it wasn't that long ago that it was, you know, a criminal offence to be homosexual. And I say that because, you know, as an 8-year-old kid, I would say been lucky enough to be on that journey of society becoming far more tolerant and understanding. And I've been on that, but my kids are only really getting involved at a point where society is wholly society is far more comfortable and accepting, and it's a norm now in a way that 40, 50, 60 years ago it was anything but. And I think sometimes it's important, Levi, that we do recognise how far we've come. Absolutely. Whilst also saying how far we've got to go.
Exactly that. That's literally what I was going to say. Is I was going to say, 30 years ago, 30 years ago, you know, I wouldn't have been 30, 35 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to be having this conversation with you had we been in America. I know it's an extreme example, but it really isn't that long ago. And I know it's a different country, but it really isn't that long ago. And I hear stories from my family, you know, of and friends of things that have happened. And I've been very lucky and guarded from this, actually, being in the environments I've been in. But, you know, race relations, they are the best they've ever been. But also then they have been divided by recent events. And I don't like to speak about it because I don't want to pretend like I'm educated that much about it, because I still don't know where I stand in terms of what to do. How do I champion it? I don't know. I don't know. And so that I always come back to that thing about being the best you can be. Yeah. And by doing that, you then champion others. But it's a wholly complex subject to talk on. And people are scared that if they say something or voice their opinion, that someone or people are going to attack them for it. But that's not the point. The point is you voice your opinion, and if it's wrong, you be open to being educated. If I voice my opinion and I am wrong, don't attack me for it. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. Give me logical things and steps, and I'll listen and I'll read and I'll look into it. And then from there, we all grow, don't we? We don't grow by arguing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, you know, because we've talked about this before on our show. We talked about this in person. I think there's two points I want to touch on. I think, we have come a long way. And I don't think you can judge the past by today's standards. And what we know to be wrong now was perceived as normal, and we can see it, but you can't go back and change it because that's history. All we can do is actually learn and move on. And you can't eradicate the past. Doesn't matter how many statues you pull down, doesn't matter how much you go and do. What happens today is far more important than trying to retrospectively judge people. And I think for me as well with this, kind of these situations is, we can always try to do better and to learn. And actually, we talk a lot about being scared about saying things. And actually, what we've got ourselves into is such a muddle, is that a disagreement is the spice of life. Having different opinions is what's important. And Ricky Gervais said it very well, that, how arrogant are you to think that you can say something people aren't going to disagree throughout there? Like, how dare you think that you're not going to do that? But what we have to remember, and what we have to continuously remember, and what brands and companies and everybody and people in the media have to remember, is that if you say something and I don't like it and I feel angry, that is an emotion. You have made emotion. It is not what you've said isn't angry. It is making me feel angry. If I feel shamed by what you said, shame is an emotion that only I can feel. And I think what we've got ourselves confused is allowing us to feel different emotions through disagreement. And I think that's it's a very hard thing for us to realize. But actually, it's okay to disagree. It's okay just to move on. It's okay for you to get, but we can't then progress to this aggressive cancelling, this mob mentality, because all these people are feeling emotions. They're not, words don't make you feel. They don't actually cause what you're saying. So I think that's something to really remember. And I think what you're saying is perfectly true. But everyone we've spoken to says the same thing. I'm scared. I'm nervous. I don't want to say something. And look, we do that.
No. Yeah. No, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of that. No.
But I am. Like Alex and I talked about it yesterday. I'm not scared to. I'm never scared to anything. But there are around sort of sexuality, gender, all these difficult topics. There are so many nuanced words, and there is so much context. Your struggle is different from my struggle. Is different from Alex's struggle. Everybody's life experience is different, and we always try to merge it and make it. And I think we have to be understanding. We have to be a little bit calmer. We have to, agree to disagree. We have to be comfortable not being, not being comfortable.
Yeah.
But also, if you say the wrong thing, it might be the wrong thing for you, but it wasn't the wrong thing for me. And then we can look at it and could we learn? Could we not learn? And that's how we move forward.
No, agreed. Exactly that. And that's that. I think that's it. Ask is like, people need to understand that, like, a heated debate or discussion or argument or whatever you want to call it is literal growth. Like, that is growth. Like, you go to the gym, it hurts after. You get bigger, you get stronger. You play rugby, you drop a few balls, you get told off. You're like, oh, brilliant. Don't want to do that again. I might go work on my skills. Great. Someone's arguing with you. Someone's annoying you. And their opinion you believe is wrong. Don't argue with them. Try and educate them, help them grow, help them improve. But your opinion might be wrong as well. So that's also a line where, how do you? Where is the truth in this? Educate yourself. Go read a book. A book. Don't read Twitter. Read a book.
Yeah. Amen.
What's really nice about this, Levi, is that your journey is so, it's just so inspiring at every turn, and you wear the challenges that you've overcome incredibly lightly. We're trying to sort of distill the conversations we're having down into 2 points, and you've nailed it. Listen and learn, and be the best you can be. And those are two really powerful takeaways, I think, for the people who'll sit and listen to this. There are two things we desperately need to clear up before we say thank you. Ben and Tom, any good at actually singing, or just clothes horses either side of you? Well, not even clothes horses, because none of you actually wore any clothes.
No, I tell you
Window
what,
dressing.
Yeah, Ben and Tom are awesome. Ben and Tom are great blokes, and to be fair, it was my first ever show, so they looked after me. I was 21, and in LA, it was a bit surreal and mental. It was absolutely amazing. Great blokes, and they know what they're doing, don't they? They're the old horses, aren't they? So there you go.
You haven't actually answered the question. Fodes in particular, he genuinely thinks he can sing. He genuinely fancies himself, does he not?
You know, Bo's can sing. Yeah, I'll give it to him.
And Tom was in a band years ago.
He was 24/7. 24/7. It was
Tom
called.
was in a band. Tom was in a band. I think Vodge loves his, his West life and like Backstreet Boys and stuff like that. He's proper old school. Tommy loves his. Yeah, no,
That's not old school, Levi. We are a child of the 90s. It's not old school. We were getting on quite well until you started, started pigeonholing those listening like the Backstreet Boys as old school.
No, I'm child of 90s, 1998, but I'm child of 90s.
That doesn't count, Levi. You didn't know what you were doing.
You're a child of the 90s when you're living in the 90s. Not if you're born in the 90s.
You're a child of the 2000s, pal. That's your thing.
That hurts to hear. That does hurt to hear.
You're Britney. Were you Britney Spears early 2000s?
Yeah. Britney Spears, Nicole.
Yeah.
Oh my God! There you go. Works in amazing ways. And final question: What is next for you? What's coming down the tracks?
It's I've actually hit another intersection in my life. It's always going to be music. Music's going to be a truth, I think, for the rest of my life. But there's a few things that I've wanted to do that I now have the time to do and explore. Even when I was younger, I wanted to, the armed forces, Royal Marines Reserves potentially, and maybe play rugby for the Navy. I'm going to continue to play rugby sevens. We'll see what happens. I made a joke with Rocco the other day saying, Rocks, I'm going to have to start calling you Corporal, which I think he enjoyed. We'll see. We'll see. I've not made any hard decisions at the minute, but there's a lot going on in my head, and I think it's going to be exciting. So we'll see.
I love it. I think once you've done that, you could be a spaceman, and then you can go into politics, and then there are. I mean, Jesus Christ, the sectors that you're ticking off.
You won't know this. Because you have to Google him. You're like Mr. Ben. Mr. Ben was a cartoon. I think when Alex was younger, where basically this guy wanted to go to a fancy dress party once, and he went to a shop. And he went into the shop, and basically when he went into the dressing room and put on the costume, he walked out, and he was that costume. And he used to go there every day. It's called Mr. Ben. My friend called me Mr. Ben because every morning I'm on GMB promoting something else or talking about something else. But you're like Mr. Ben. It's like you go into your bedroom and you're like, oh, I think I'll be a soldier today. And you'll come out and live that. And you're like, oh, I think I'll be a pop star. Oh, I think I'll be a farmer. Like I can imagine it like in your mind. This is what's going to happen in the next 20 years.
Well. Actually, when I was growing up, like my foster dad said to me, like, you're a jack of all but a king of none. So, one, that's actually going to be the name of my first album, and two, I think I've just taken it to the extreme, and I'm enjoying it being a jack of all. So there we go.
Quite right too. You are a Swiss Army pen-up. Your CV must be about 45 pages long, I would have thought.
Right. I actually don't put half of my stuff on my CV. My mum was like, why don't you do it? I was just like, no one wants to read this. So
They do. You are hugely inspiring. I've really, really enjoyed this, and I know you'll feel the same as well. Levi, thank you so much. Some brilliant, brilliant pearls for us to take away, and we will watch and listen with great interest. And very best of luck with everything that comes next. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Ask. Cheers,
Thanks, mate.